Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
I thought of you this morning. I was talking about Billy's movie, Billy Crudup, called Without Limits. Remember we were talking to him about that? I was talking to my buddy who I'm training. I was talking to my buddy that I train with, and I was like, "It's the best. Have you seen it?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "It's the best movie that you haven't seen, like hands down." And you've seen that a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, we watched it again as a family recently, and I was actually working with a kid who's a long distance runner, and like he runs with his pelvis tilted and flop forward, and I'm like, "Hey, you got to watch this movie." Where they talk about that, right, in your hip position
at the point of deepest penetration, as Donald Sutherland says. It's a classic movie, and I actually thought of you this morning on that. But how's it going in Vancouver? What's new over
there? They're kind of opening stuff back up, and so we have like less than 100 cases per day, and so it's kind of like, okay, I guess the vaccinations are finally making a difference, and so
I haven't worn a mask. I actually haven't worn a mask in days, if not a week. I actually can't. The only time I'm really, I was in LA and I was unsure, so I wore them at times, walking into restaurants, etc. But getting on a plane, obviously, in an airport, obviously. But I'll be flying to the West Coast on July 6th. But I haven't in my town right now. Like, we stopped wearing them at church. We stopped wearing them going to restaurants, grocery stores. Like, we just don't wear them. I don't wear them. At gyms, I don't wear it.
And that's because the full vaccination rate's pretty high?
I don't know if that's why. I think it was just enforced. It was just not enforced, but it was, I wouldn't use the word enforced. It was just stated by,
just generally accepted.
It was generally accepted. I mean, who said? Cuomo said it. He was like, at this point in June, you do not have to wear a mask anymore. I think people are just done with them. I mean, I still keep them in my car. You just never know. But I don't know. I'm done with it. I mean, I'm training with that one on right now. I love it. Like, there's just so many things. I mean, you're seeing people's faces now. You're like, oh my God, like, I forgot what you look like. It's almost comical. It's just, I can't tell you how many people I've seen, and I'm like, holy Jesus, like, I totally forgot you look like that. It's like,
yeah, people are having to like brush and floss their teeth now. It's it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Once we get into the fall, and are people still gonna, like, I was talking to somebody about flying out to New York, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll probably still wear it on the plane, or at least a good portion, depending on who's sitting beside me. You just got to see if it's in.
Yeah, you got to see if it. No, you have to wear it on the plane right now. They're
still?
Not
okay.
Yeah, they're not allowing you not to. Like, I flew in from LA like a week or so ago. I had to have one on the plane. I had to have one going through the airport. Like, you can't. They will not allow it. And when you're booking your tickets, it's kind of like, well, these are like, I fly Delta. They're like, well, these are Delta rules. Can you accept that? Which I don't get, because a few people flipped out over it. I'm like, but you accepted this when you purchased your tickets. It will not allow you to purchase your tickets unless you check the box of, I understand that I'm going to be required to wear a mask.
Did you see, I forget where it was on the news about, like, there's more physical confrontations on board flights now, like people losing it and, fighting the flight attendants. And I'm like, really?
I think it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I mean,
crazy.
if you're a human being and you're going to go, if you're a human being and not a dog, if you're a human being and you are going to start an argument, a confrontation with a flight attendant, like, what do they have to do with it? This is not their, whether they believe it or not, it is the rules they have to follow. There's such a sense of entitlement when people get on planes. Like, they're just, I don't get it. Like, suddenly they just feel like they can be rude to other people. They're just like, they're disgusting. Like, there was a guy the other day, he's like eating Cheez-Its, literally like shoveling the bag in his mouth as if he was going to the electric chair. And I was like, like eating, like disgusting. Like, where are your manners? People are sitting next to him. Like, this woman's looking at him like, what are you doing? Like, where are, like, Are you not born with manners?
Okay, here's my theory. Everywhere else you go, for the most part, is a choice. Like I'm going to go to this restaurant or I'm going to go to the store. So other people are making those same choices. But when you get on the plane or when you hang out with me at the bus station, it's just whoever shows up, right? So you're exposed to this strata of society that maybe you normally wouldn't be around. I assume that's it, where you're like, okay, this is the world.
I don't know. I consider myself a very polite person, and I'm always, concerned. I bump into someone, excuse me. Like if someone's walking through the door, I hold it open for them. Like even that, like someone, and it happens to me, like I'll hold the door open and they'll just walk right by it. I'll be like, no problem. Like, yeah, no problem. I kind of like blurt it out at them and they get nervous. They kind of jump. They're like, why is this guy coming at me? I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll just sit here and hold the door for you all day.
That's because people weren't raised like you and me, right? So I assume that's it. It's how you were raised.
Cheez-Its, a bag of Cheez-Its.
You should have felt that.
And literally, like the funniest part about it was, and I don't have a bag, but he's sitting here with a bag, and the guy's literally like patting the back of the bag, like get all the salt,
every
ounce of it, and then like, oh my god, and the flight attendants come around with like their little tray cart. That's comical. Like I can't tell you how many times they've asked me, like, would you like something? I never get anything. I bring my own water. I'll bring my own food. To each his own. My wife, my kids will grab a snack. My wife might grab a snack. People are literally jumping on the flight attendant. Like, how many allowed? One? No, I don't want to. Grabbing into their basket the cookies, the Cheez-Its, the Terra chips. Like,
you know what it's like?
Stuff. Like, but it's a free chip.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like,
it's like when
these, and not even a thank you.
It's like when you go to the basketball game or the whatever, and they're firing the T-shirts in, and people are groveling to, like, they've paid what, $300 to sit in their seat, and they go and fire a T-shirt, and everybody's like wrestling each other to get a $5 T-shirt.
It's insane. It's like, or like the I don't love this, but it's always like anytime like a kid's about to like catch a ball, like you see a kid there, like step back, like let him. If he drops it,
yeah. People are diving in front of the kid.
They're like diving in front of the kid. They're like falling into him. And then people, I got caught up in the moment. I'm sorry. I'm like, it's a child. It's a 7-year-old kid.
It's a baseball.
Standing right next to you. Like, it's a baseball. Where do they used to throw the baseball? Do they still do that at Wrigley Field? I think when they would catch a home run, they would throw it back by the opposing team. I think they would do that.
That's right.
Which I thought was actually kind of cool. Like, they don't hold on.
Did you see that one where the woman was holding a baby and the ball went in and it obviously bounced, but she's got like whoosh, she just grabs it and she's holding an infant or a baby. Like
it's amazing. But I don't know. I mean, I could spend a whole episode right now on manners. It's just I don't want it, and I don't want to, because I don't want to come off sounding negative here, but it is a pet peeve of mine.
Okay, well, let me
relax on the flight attendants. These poor flight attendants who are they're in a tin can 30,000 feet up, right? And they have to, like, I understand their schedule changes a lot, and they may have days off and this and that, but like they literally will be on a 5-hour flight, they'll land and they'll turn around, they'll have to fly back. Like that to me is like, that's like a recipe for like suicide. Like I just flew 5 hours from Vegas to New York. Now I got to turn around, clean the plane, and fly back. Like that's kind of rough.
That's why like prescription medication should be allowed at the gate, like where they're like, they have like the gun where they say poof, right? You get a Valium as you enter the aluminum tube, right? Put me in a coma. I don't need to enjoy this flight.
Yeah, I don't want to enjoy it. At least give it maybe when THC becomes legal, they'll be handing out like little
like whatever before or just flood the compartment with.
Oh, wait, hold on. That's another thing too. What about when you're at your gate? And they always announce like, if anyone needs any additional help, go first, and then they go and including our military, fantastic. And okay, now we're going to do like first class and medallion and then comfort plus. And then people stand in front of the gate. Like everyone's like standing there. I'm like, I get it. Like you have no bags right now. I'm looking at someone standing there with no bags. They have like a backpack. Like you're going to get some head space to be able to put that. Like it's okay. Like you're in row 38. So
I just wait.
Move out of the way.
I wait. And then, when they say like, hey, does anybody want to check their bag for free? Right now, just go, yeah, okay. I don't, why pay for an extra bag when you know that they're going to give you that chance to check it, so that you don't have to put it in the bin. And then I go sit in the corner till everybody else boards. Right.
Yeah, it really is a smart way to do it. I'll normally, because my credit card's American Express, so I have a Delta Amex card, and you get this lounge access, which you can go up, and some of the lounges are like beautiful, fantastic. And I went to the one in Miami, and I was like, oh my god, this is why am I even up here? It was awful. And but I normally like hanging out in there until they're like boarding the plane, and I'm looking at the watch like, all right, let's just go on and get our seat, and we find a place for our bags. It's not a big deal, but just it's more civilized. It's almost more civilized. And then you get on the plane, you're sitting there for 40 minutes. And by the time you're on first and they board the plane and then they get everything set up. I mean, it's at least 30 minutes if you're lucky from the second to the first one on.
So what you're saying is you really enjoy traveling now.
I actually, you know what? I find traveling for me is probably one of the most productive, anywhere from 2 to 6 hour periods of time that I have. I bring my laptop, I write programs, I write challenges, I take notes, I go through thoughts. I can honestly say it's one of the only times during my month where I have that amount of time uninterrupted. I'm not getting a phone call. I'm not getting a text. I'll get emails, but I'll gladly answer them. I'll clean my email out. I'll start answering specific questions. Maybe I have to think a little bit more about. When I'm at home right now, there is so much distraction for me. That's why a lot of times it's nice on the weekends because I don't have calls set up, right? I don't have many appointments. I train. I spend time with the kids. I golf if I'm lucky, or if I want to. But if I am up in the morning and Mel and the kids like to sleep in a little bit, to have 2 hours of that time where I can literally eat my breakfast in front of the computer, which I know everyone says is a terrible thing to do. I find it relaxing. I actually chew my food and I actually take my time with eating. I don't know. I find that incredible time for me.
Yeah. I've written like 10, 12 page articles on flights after say,
it's amazing.
I visit you. Then on the way back, I'm like, hey, I got some ideas. And then you just put them all down. I'm pretty productive, especially.
Yeah, but don't you find that a time where you're just on it? I mean, in your lifestyle, I mean, you've got 2 kids, right? You have
3. I have 3.
3. I'm sorry. Oh my God, I just caught myself. You have 3 kids, and you're married, and you have a business, and you have all these things going on. You have people reaching out to you on social media, people trying to ask you questions and call out you, and you're always very gracious with your time. But I find when you get up in that, don't you find when you get up in that plane, aren't you like interrupted? This is like, oh my God, don't you kind of enjoy it? I don't enjoy the fact of like being in a tin can 30,000 feet up. Like to me, that's kind of scares me, It really is crazy. It really is. If you think about it, you're like, okay, we're going to put 200 something people on a plane and we're going to take off, and we have 2 pilots, dealing with that. And, just hope that the maintenance guys did their job and, hope that like we didn't miss any steps.
We're doing a really poor job of promoting travel right now, but yeah.
No, but it is really remarkable. I mean, if you think like my wife hates flying. I mean, it's when we were flying home the other day, we were landing, and I am not exaggerating right now. The plane, I thought the plane was about to do a roll, and she's sitting right next to me, and you can verify that I'm not lying here. But we were flying towards the landing. We were basically, you're basically about to land. And what do you think we were? It was at the point where the wheels down yet. The wheels weren't down. The wheels weren't down. It was right before the wheels were down because I remember hearing it. So whatever that.
I got really happy when we got below 2,000.
Okay. The plane literally at one point, I thought it started making this hard turn left. It didn't make a hard turn left. The plane literally went like this to the point where it was here.
Really?
People were yelling. I looked up at my wife looking down at me. She was screaming. I was like in shock. I was like, holy shit. And the plane literally went from here back down.
Which airport was this?
We were flying in JFK. We were
Really?
landing in JFK. Literally, I mean, when I say a full bank, I've had weird. Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I've had dreams of the plane doing this, being on a 727 and doing this. In my dreams, you get that real sensation. It was a deja vu. It was the exact sensation to the point where I think I went into so much. I was almost shocked about it. I immediately reverted back to my dream of doing that, but the plane didn't go all the way over. It went to here and went back down. And when we landed, we were everyone was just kind of looking at each other like, oh my, I can't believe more people weren't screaming. I mean, it happened fast. It was abrupt. She wasn't happy. But
do you have any friends who are pilots?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes. Brian Idry. One of my buddies, I'm going to say his name, Brian Idry, graduated Colston Harbor High School with him. I think he actually flies for Delta. I think he flies like Delta Regional.
Yeah, a buddy of mine flew for the Canadian military, and then he flew like transports, and then now he's commercial pilot. So he tells me all the stories, and he's so calm. He's so like, yeah, this happened, that happened, and it's they're so cool and know what to do. It's amazing, right? Like, he's telling me all the stuff like you should be able to take a 737 or whatever, take both its wingtips and pull them all the way up so they touch. That's how flexible it should be, right? Like, and I'm like, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I didn't know that either. It's funny. I've got a couple friends that are pilots. I said Brian was my buddy. Chris Ruciano's a pilot. Morgan Hoffman, the PGA Tour player, is a pilot. I've actually flown. I flew with Chris, but the first taste of it I got was through my old client Bob Pittman, who's the founder of MTV and VH1 and Nickelodeon, and took AOL to he helped build AOL. He's a very successful guy, and he has a plane. And I was asking him one day, and I'll never forget him telling me this. I said, Bob, how much can a plane really handle? Because I remember it was right after. So after 9/11, there was a plane in like Queens that just lost an engine, and it was catastrophic. I mean, everyone in the plane died, but basically lost an engine on takeoff. And I remember at that point, that's when I started developing somewhat of a sense of a fear of flying. When you're a young kid, you're like, oh, okay, it's fine. Nothing's going to happen. Even though you do hear about tragedies, but when you actually see that stuff happen, you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But I remember asking Bob, I'm like, how much can a plane handle? And before I even finished, he was like, more than you can. He's like, you would probably get rattled to death before that plane would fall apart. And I remember that's something to this day. Yeah, no, and I remember like this is probably in 2000, whatever it was, 2002. And I remember that this is literally giving me some peace of mind for the last 20 years of my life. But yeah, it's my wife said, why are you guys talking about planes? We're talking about air travel.
We're just tangenting all over the place here. Yeah, no, I don't have a fear of flying. I have a fear of people. So it's not the actual mechanical engineering piece. It's the social, sharing the same air or whatever. That's what I have.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't. I mean, it doesn't deter me, but I'm like, if I could not fly with these people, I would prefer to do it.
Oh, I mean, right when COVID was like, right when air travel started opening up, I remember having to I flew back in December. So December of 2020, I jumped on a plane down to Florida, and it was one of the best flights I've ever taken in my life. I remember getting to the airport, and I mean, I think I left from, or whatever it was. It was JFK or LaGuardia. I can't even remember. I remember walking to the airport and probably seeing, there was no one on security. I walked right through security. I may have seen 5 people in the whole airport. And I got on the plane. There might have been 3 or 4 people. I can't believe we even flew. I was like, why are they? They must have had to have gotten the plane down there for some reason. Because I literally had like a 727 to myself.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Last flight we were on, when people are literally like, snorting Cheez-Its up their nose. Like, it's like, they were, the plane was packed. And
Yeah.
now,
So
like, we just had to book our Christmas holiday, and we're flying out to Vegas in like 2 weeks. And, these planes now, they're getting filled. Like, if you
yeah.
don't hurry up and book, you're not going to get where you want to sit,
Yeah, I figure it's going to be like that with everything, hotels and resorts, and everything's going to be packed. People trying to make up for lost time.
Yeah, but what was nice about it is air travel has definitely become a lot more comfortable. Like, the way the way you have the ability to travel now can become way more comfortable than what I remember when I was growing up. Like, between the sky lounges, and like, you're looking at like Delta has like Delta One now, and it's like reclining full beds with like desks next to them. Like, it is pretty remarkable how you can get into the air and actually be on email the whole time. Oh, and you have a huge TV screen this big in front of you where you can watch movies that are in the movie theaters. And it is, we have gotten a little bit spoiled, from where I remember it used to be when I was a kid traveling with my parents. It was like, all right, here are your
Yeah,
peanuts and pretzels.
but it was exciting when you were a kid, right? It was like, I get
Oh
to
my
travel.
God. Yeah, you weren't even thinking about anything. I mean, do you remember trips what were your standout trips as a kid?
Oh, like going down to California to like Disneyland, or actually traveling for sports. It was always like you travel with the team, and even in college, like you travel with the team, and it was always like, it was a social thing. It was, you're traveling to a competition. And so that's what I remember, is that, there's always something to look forward to when you were with a group of like-minded people, right? So if you had, 30 people, 40 people from a team, you took all those seats, and so you didn't have to deal with the general public. So I enjoyed that piece. So, but
Our team, and that was in what sport were you traveling at?
it was like a track team.
So you were in track in high school, correct?
Well,
But you played football.
basketball I played in high school, and did track and basketball, and in college it was track. So
And
it was
what
always.
college? What college you run for?
It was at local University of British Columbia, right? So we traveled across Canada. So um, yeah, it was good times. Good times. That was. But yeah, I never thought of travel as a deterrent or a problem. Or we even flew down to like training camps in California, came back, and there would be snowstorms. We got grounded at SeaTac in Seattle, massive snowstorm, and certain people were freaking out on the plane. And I'm like, oh, this is exciting. Like, okay, this is different. Like, I never thought of the danger aspect. I just thought, oh, this is okay, this is cool. Like, you look out the window and there's like massive amounts of snow going by the wing, and you're like, oh shit, we can still fly. But yeah, some people really freaked out, and I was fine with it. What was this?
Yeah,
What's the next scariest flight you've ever had, aside from your sideways JFK
there
experience?
was I mean, I think this was the scariest one. Was I remember flying home from Miami, and the flight was, I'll never forget it. I remember the pilot getting on, being like 1 hour and 59 minutes home. And I'm like, 1 hour 59 from Miami is fast. Or you had to have some crazy tailwinds. And I remember for an hour 59, the flight attendants didn't even sit down. They just stood up and held on the whole way, to the point where like they couldn't bring a beverage cart out. They couldn't serve, snacks. And the plane shook so hard, I just heard people
Did
crying.
they
Literally,
did they say anything to you guys as the passengers? Like, did they say like, we're good, we're
I don't even
good?
remember. I don't even remember that. I remember landing and the pilot getting on. Everyone's dead silent. He just went, "I can't hear you." Everyone's like, "Oh!" The grown men were like crying. I'm like pouring sweat. And I remember getting off the plane and just being like, "That was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. It was absolutely terrible." Um, but hey, listen, um, trying to keep it positive here. It's like, get my head out of the cover with these flights. But yeah, no, that was a crappy one. I remember ones as a kid where I remember circling for hours, and I'll never forget getting on the plane, and two of the flight attendants used to work with my father at the catering hall, and one's name was Lynn, and I forgot the other's name, but they saw my parents, and they like freaked out, and they were all excited. They weren't obviously working with my old man anymore, but I remember they like upgraded us. There was like available seats, so they upgraded the four of us to like first class, and we're all like, it's like life is good, whatever. We're having a good time. And I remember the flight attendant turning around being like, "There's a huge snowstorm. I don't think we can land in New York JFK or either JFK. Like we're gonna probably have to go and make go towards Newark." And we're like, okay, fine. And then I remember us circling for like, it felt like hours. Like it
Oh,
probably
wow.
was close. It was probably close to the point where like the flight attendant like went to my dad and was like, my dad's like, how much more longer? They're like, the lady was like, doesn't matter how much more longer. We're going to have to land. We're running out of gas.
Yeah. Or
And I remember,
they're
and I
emptying the
remember,
fuel tanks just in
no,
case.
and I remember the flight attendant, like, as like they're telling my father this, like, I remember they're just pouring my mom like a glass of wine. Like, mom, just get my mom hammered at that point. And I remember just being there and like, I was like, okay, like, I was probably listening to like my Discman at the time. And I remember having a Discman or a Walkman or whatever the hell it was. I was young. And I just remember being like, okay, we're going to be fine. Like, I didn't even like,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Like just putting your faith, like talk about having faith in the man upstairs and the fact that the pilot got us on the ground. I remember that the storm was so bad when we landed that we couldn't even drive to our house. We had to check into like some Marriott across
Oh,
the
wow.
street from, we literally had to check into some hotel across the street from Newark, and we had to stay the night and then drive home the next day, which the drive home was only like an hour and a half. It's not a big deal, but literally like the roads weren't drivable. It was that bad. But yeah. How about
Wow.
you?
Not that one story where we were grounded at oh, actually it wasn't SeaTac. We had to land at the Boeing airstrip and stay there for a while. It wasn't, we got redirected, and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I get lucky we had another airstrip at Boeing, but that was about it. It was nothing. I've had not the same type of landings you've had, but you've had landings where the plane's coming in and it goes sideways a bit, and
Oh, it's not
you
good.
know.
I actually had a landing once that the back tire touched the ground and was riding on the back tire, and then the pilot had to like hammer it and take back off.
Oh, nice.
That's fucking freak. Excuse my language. That is freaky.
Oh, wow.
That'll be like, oh my god, and he'll be like, sorry, everyone, like we're running out of runway. You're like, things are sounding so nonchalant about that. What I don't like getting. I mean, my pet peeve is getting on the plane and just they're rushing to get you on the plane because there's a time limit, and then they bring you out of the gate and then they just park.
Yeah,
And
they sit there.
I've spent hours,
Oh, I know.
hours just sitting there going, "What the hell is going on?" And
I know.
I remember one time we had to land at some airport in Atlantic City to refuel, and they were like, "We're gonna have to refuel, but there's no one working at the gate because it's at a certain time at night." And they were just like, no one's working at the gate and there's no concessions. We can let you off the plane, but if you're not back on the plane and we're taking off, you're going to be screwed. And the craziest thing I remember, this is before I started flying like one airline all the time. I was flying like some dump airline. You're a young kid and you're trying to like, you're looking at like Spirit Airlines or like all these airlines to try to like save a couple bucks. And I remember the pilot being like, and there's no concessions, but we were thinking maybe we can start calling some pizzas down to like like he was gonna call Domino's. And I remember looking at the person I was flying with, being like, did he just say he was gonna call like a Pizza Hut or a Domino's to feed the plane? Like that's how crazy it was. I finally got to the point where like with travel now, I don't mean to sound spoiled. I'm just like, we're flying one airline. I'm getting used to one type of like, there's one, like, I love, like, I'm a big promotion for Delta. Like, I'm very happy flying them. I've had good experiences with them. They're very nice. I mean, granted, every once in a while you deal with someone, but all in all, it's my experience has been fantastic. So, do you have an airline that you like to fly, or you just kind of surf around?
Um, I like going to New York. It was always Cathay Pacific because they've got that Hong
But
Kong,
that's
Vancouver.
nice.
Yeah, it's because it's international, right? So it's like an elevated sort of experience. Like everything's better, everybody's nicer, the food is better and everything. So that was my favorite. And then for domestic, I would do Delta, primarily because you and Jeremy said that was the best one to take. So
I would definitely listen to Jeremy on all that stuff. I think he did say Delta was one of the best in the States. But then he started getting into like Air Singapore, and he started talking Singapore, Emirates. I heard. I mean, I just recently watched a YouTube on a guy who didn't pay for the first class or whatever the top class was on Emirates, but it was a hotel room. It was actually remarkable. Like, he went in, he had his own bathroom, he had his own shower, he had his own bed lounge area, which was, I mean, he had enough space in there where you can drop on the ground and do push-ups, right? Literally, like, he had space where you can actually probably do a bodyweight workout of lunges and stuff. I mean, it was unbelievable. They think they said the flight was like, I think something like 50 grand. It's, a lot of money, but he was like, I'm not paying for this. This is a promotion for the guy had millions of followers, but what an incredible way to travel.
Like whenever I get bumped up to like first class or business class, and if you do have to wait, you're just like, yeah, whatever, just keep bringing the stuff. Like, I don't care. Like, you're not in the back with all the peasants, right? And
it does make things a lot better. I mean, when you have space and you have the opportunity to work and stand up and use the bathroom and not feel like people are bumping into you, and then like you always feel like the flight attendants are a little bit more polite, and it's just, I don't take advantage of anything up there if I do fly up there, but it is, I take advantage of the space, and I feel like I'm a better person when I end up landing at my destination, because when you're tying someone into a chair for 5 hours, it is really uncomfortable. And some people are like, I can't justify spending extra money. Like, I can.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like a snob here, but like, it is like, I don't like showing up when I'm flying somewhere feeling like complete garbage and just being in a bad mental state. But there's been I've flown, I have flown with a lot of my clients in the past where they would, I'm not mentioning names, but they would get, they would have a job for a specific brand, and they'd be able to bring their coach, or they'd be able to bring a +1, and they would always be like, just come with me. I know it. Let's just hang and get a couple workouts in and blah, 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 blah. And you'd always fly like, British Airways first class, Virgin Atlantic first class. Like, there were some decent, nice ways to travel, but I think B of A was great when we flew that. When I flew that a couple of times, but I think the two airlines that I haven't flown that I would love to fly would be Singapore. I'm sorry, three would be Cathay Pacific, Singapore, and Emirates, which I hear are like exceptional.
It's definitely, especially now that I'm older, it's definitely worth it to get that upgrade and not have to deal with all that stuff. It's scarring sometimes, right? So
it's also like, I'm not a fan. I'm definitely not a fan. And the worst now is like, if you ever have the ability, which trust me, I do not fly private unless I'm hitching a ride. But when you have the ability to kind of travel like that, and I have a few, whatever it is, a dozen times, a few dozen times, but when you get exposed to that, then you're like, okay, this is a luxury I would pay for if I had the money. Like rolling into Teterboro and having them pull your car up on the runway, or your Uber up on the runway, getting out and taking 15 steps and walking onto a plane and having your food ready. And they're like, okay, we're going to be in the air in 5 minutes. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic. When I was just out at Big Sky, Montana, I think we left the hotel at 11 a.m. I'll never forget. It was an hour drive to take off from Big Sky, Montana. So it was 11 a.m. We got to the runway at 12. We were in the air by 12:10, 12:15, like literally in the air. I was back home in my house. I think the flight took us 3 hours and 20 minutes to get home from Montana. We're flying like a big G5, 16 passenger. There's like 4 of us on it. Great food, drinks, the whole nine. You land, and the car picks you up, and I'm at 30 minutes, I'm home. So door to door, you look at that experience, it probably was door to door, meaning like the travel. So you're looking at an hour plus, let's say 3.5 is 4.5, 5 hours door to door. I'm at my house. I'm in the shower in New York, in Long Island. It's like 5 hours. We're talking Montana. Like that's insane. You can't do northern Florida in that. Like if you're flying commercial, you got to get there at least an hour before. Then you don't know about delays. Then you got to get you got to get an Uber or you got to get your car. Like it's every time you travel now, even if it's to Miami, it's like an 8 hour day, 6 to 8 hour day, whatever it is.
Yeah. No,
Because of
that's
commuting
yeah.
and putting into consideration, COVID now, and you don't know how long the lines are going to be. And that's, to me, that's pretty nice. I mean, for the people who have money, that type of money, I highly recommend it. You sound like a snob, but
no, it's the truth. It's the truth, though, right? So
well, I mean, what are they paying for? I mean, they're paying for time. I mean, if you think about it, like, what is it? It is expensive for these guys to rent jets or even own a jet. Remember, a client of mine told me he owned a jet and he owned a G5, and he told me that it would cost him, like, I think about $1 million a year to maintain. I don't know if that's including his I don't think it's including his air travel. There's no chance. But I think with maintenance, and I think he said it, or maybe it was all in, but whatever it was, the number was like $1 million a year to have that plane. But he
huh.
didn't. He was worth so much damn money to begin with. It's like I'm down in Miami with this guy at one point. He calls me at 11 a.m. He's like, "We're leaving." I'm like, "Okay." Thinking to myself, I thought we were leaving tomorrow. He's like, grab your bags. I'm like, I show up at the rental car. I got to return the rental car. He's like, leave the keys on the counter. I'm like, okay. I don't have to bring the rental car back. I mean, that might be as cool as not having to hop on a private plane. But when we're in the air, literally, I pull up, the Uber's waiting, and you're home in no time. I'm like, oh my God, like this is convenience. I think I made it home door to door. I think I was door to door from Miami in a little over 3 hours, door to door. By the time I left his house, it was a 10-minute ride to the Miami International Airport. They pulled right up, right on the plane, right in the air, 2:15 home, Uber from Teterboro to my apartment in the city. And then you're like, holy Jesus, like this is living now. Like I literally got the call from him at 11:20, and I think it was 3 o'clock or a little after 3, and I'm downtown Manhattan in my apartment, about to jump in the shower.
That's great.
I'll take it. Bid.
I was on one flight where we're in, I think it was Toronto or Winnipeg or something, and they put us on the plane, and they're like, okay, we got to wait to de-ice the wings, and then by the time they de-ice the wings, we're back waiting in the queue again, and they're like, there's more snow on, we got to de-ice it. I think they de-iced the wings like 4 times. It took us forever to get out of there.
So
that was painful.
I want to say back in the day, yeah, the de-icing's the worst. I want to say back in the day, there was a time I was going down to Florida, and I want to say I was on a plane. For some reason, the number feels like 8 hours, maybe total, with the flight plus the delay taking off. I think whatever the flight was maximum, I remember it was before they changed regulations. Like they were back in the day, they had different regulations, but I remember them taxing for a period of time, and if you don't take off, like we had to pull back. And then I think to board the plane and reboard the plane and go back out, and then we're in a holding pattern. But I remember I remember taking like 8+ hours to fly down to Florida, which is it's a little over a 2 hour flight for us. I mean, you fly to Orlando, that's nothing. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, talk about feeling like you're in a sardine can.
Well, we seem
I think we seem to have what?
I'm just saying this ended up being the travel edition of
but I think air for the positive though, I think you're starting to see air travel change a bit. I mean, it is interesting to see guys like Jeremy Jauncey with beautiful destinations, and I think air travel has elevated. I mean, I don't think it's declined. I think the comfort of air travel is elevated. I think some of the amenities on air travel is elevated. I think certain like of the upper classes have definitely hands down improved. And I think it has gotten better. I mean, it's definitely gotten safer, right? I mean, there's more regulations on there. I mean, there's more of protocols to follow. I mean, it definitely feels like the air travel is safer, and you hope that continues. But I don't know. Thoughts?
It was interesting. There was I guess Anthony Bourdain, his birthday is the 25th. He would have been 65. And so I was watching a couple of videos on him, and somebody asked him like, "Hey, you're so skinny, but you do all this eating on your show. How do you do it?" And he had a really good answer about, I think it was, again, it talks about this discipline thing that we're talking about. He just ate good food, and when he didn't have to eat, he didn't eat. He didn't eat snacks. And if he knew he had a big meal for a shoot, he just wouldn't eat that much because he knew, like, so it was all this in his head. He was accounting for everything, and he knew exactly what he was putting in his body. Obviously he liked alcohol. Obviously he had some addiction issues, but he had some rules around how he ate, and it worked for him. And I was just going to ask you, like, do you keep it that simple with some of the people you work with, or do you have to get in all the talk about, macros and this and that, or can you just have a simple plan for them?
Yeah, it's a simple plan. I mean, I don't really do macros I mean, looking at all my celebrities right now, I don't think I do macros for any of them. I just think it's adding an additional pressure. I think you also have to understand what is it they're getting ready for. Like if Annie Hathaway is getting ready to look really skinny, well, we can do that without, having to measure macros all the time, right? I mean, I think when macros get really important is when someone needs that type of structure. Like I know that I do a lot better with the structure. I'm a happier person with that structure of knowing, all right, my meals need to look like this, or I feel like my body looks better, I have less inflammation, and there's less variability to start, skipping meals. Even with air travel, it might be where if I have to prepare for something, it's like I'm packing a meal. We're having a little going away thing for a little retirement party in a few hours for a buddy of mine. Like I literally have to bring a meal of this. Like I just have to. It's part of what I do. But I mean, the majority of the people I work with, no, we're not measuring macros. A lot of my challengers like to measure it because I think there's some honesty there at least. And I think you get into the conversation, a lot of people saying, well, I eat really well. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? And as soon as they, start putting it on paper, they're like, all right, maybe I don't eat so well. I'm like, yeah, you got to be honest. Like, and I think a lot of people struggle to really be honest what it is they do. And I think sometimes measuring macros can really help, but I think it's like anything else. It's identifying their starting point and identifying their personality, and then, trying to make a decision on what do you think is best for their success. And it's interesting how some people just get too stressed out with it, and other people are like, oh my God, I need this. It's really individualistic.
Yeah. And I have simple rules for myself. And a lot of it is like, if I'm not hungry, don't eat. And that works well because sometimes I would travel to like work with a professional team, and they have like, the cafeteria, they have their own chefs, and they have food everywhere. And I assume that's more for the athletes, but it's very easy to see like, wow, I got all this food. I should probably eat it. And at some point I had to say like, no, I don't have to eat it. Like, I don't, I'm not hungry. I don't need that. But it does take some degree of discipline, like to say that. And sometimes when I'm hungry, I don't eat because I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to go out for dinner later. But and the more that I do that, the easier it gets. Like, that's what I find. Very habit forming.
But you also have good discipline, and you're also someone who, I assume you kind of pick your battles. I mean, a lot of people, they will cave in. Suddenly that blood sugar level's off. Like if my blood sugar level's off, like I'm not going to cave unless I want it. Right. Like most people, their blood sugar level's off. They have a stressful day. They come home. They're like, the hell with it. I'm just going to.
They're the Cheez-It guy.
Yeah. It's like, come on. But then people start wondering why they feel like such shit. And even it's this time that we're in now where you'll see a lot of the publications, they're trying to be all empowering. Like, all right, like have the cake, and all right, like eat the piece of pizza, and they're trying to be like, F you, like go do it. And I'm like,
that never works.
No, but it's like, okay, I get it. Like, what are you trying to say? Live your life a little bit. I get it. But a lot of people turn around, they realize, oh my God, I took that attitude. I put on 20 pounds of body fat.
Yeah, the cheat day healthy. Turns into a cheat week.
Listen, month. It's not. I'm sorry, it's not healthy to have body fat. Like to high levels of body fat, it's not healthy. Now, there are times as an athlete, it's important. Like I'm listening to Matt Frazier talk the other day about when he was training and he was like, oh no, I had to eat specific things. I was burning so many calories. Or Michael Phelps. And Michael Phelps is talking about consuming 12,000 calories a day because he's in a pool, 8 hours a day and he's training and he's burning. And he's like, I can't eat chicken. Sorry. I can't eat chicken and rice for 12,000 calories. And he's right. Like he's going to have to eat like General Chow's chicken. He's going to have to eat very calorically dense foods that taste delicious that he's going to be able to get down a high level of bulk. And you're not going to do that eating the way that I'm eating right now. Like if I'm eating right now, my dog, quiet. If I'm eating, it's unbelievable.
Feed your dog.
If I'm eating 33 or 3,500 calories a day right now, it's a lot of food that I'm eating. It's a lot of food. It's very easy for me to consume 5,000 calories if I go I can go to Five Guys and have 2 double burgers and a chocolate shake and medium fries there. The large is like this big. And I will get down a ton of calories and that's easy. And I can eat like that and get my calories high. Try getting your calories to 3,500 to 4,000 calories by eating chicken or salmon or sweet potato or broccoli. Like these are filling foods. You have I just had a meal where I consumed 10 ounces of sweet potato, 8 ounces of broccoli, and 8 ounces of bison. That's a lot of food. That's a lot of food. That's really filling. But it's not as much calories as, it's probably the less calories than 2 slices of pepperoni pizza. It is. It's less calories.
Yeah.
So think about that. Like to get in that amount of calories at a high level of bulk, it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of work. And most of us, honestly, when we had Dr. Perlmutter on the other day, and I forgot what he said, we were phrasing something very similar, but also very, very, very different. Can you hear that in the background?
Faintly.
Can you hear anything? Faintly, good. We were talking about something very similar, but very different. But I was like, yeah, most people are in a deficit. And he's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, no, we're not really talking about the same thing. Because what I was talking about was when people start trying to eat clean and they start trying to make good food choices, they're in a deficit. They are. Because you will see, how many times do you hear this? Well, I had a healthy breakfast. I had some cottage cheese and some fruit. And you're like, okay. Or I had 4 egg whites and a piece of Ezekiel toast. Like, what is that? Like, what are you consuming? 200 calories? 300 calories? Like, no, it's just insane. Like, I'm not talking about when you're on a crappy diet. Can you hear that now?
I cannot hear it.
Okay, good. But like you're like some people, so they start trying to eat really clean early on. And because of that, they are undernourishing themselves. And when they're trying to eat clean and they're undernourishing themselves, food is medicine. They're not staying satiated. They're going to throw their blood sugar level off. They're going to go have a lunch of like, oh, I went to Sweet Greens and had a salad with some chicken on it. You're like, okay, didn't even have any carbs on it. They had like a balsamic dressing. Like, again, at that point now, they're lucky if they're at 600-700 calories, especially if they start holding the cheeses and all that stuff. But how is that? Like, dinner rolls around and you're at 800 calories and your body needs 2,200. Sorry about that. So we're only going for about 5 minutes. So how do you, like, there's a certain amount of calories we all burn in a day if we sit down. Like, this is something I want everyone listening to this podcast to understand. It's the most valuable information you're going to, if you sit on the couch all day, you are going to burn a certain amount of calories. That's called your resting energy expenditure.
What roughly, how many would you say that would be?
It depends on the individual. Yeah, I would really recommend you going in for some type of a resting metabolic rate test, like an RMR test, or you can use a calculator called the Mifflin calculator, which you can get on my site, which will get you into a range. And I've tested it with RMR testing. I've gone to DexaFit facilities and I've tested people with the Mifflin calculator opposed to where, you know, a normal healthy individual is with an RMR test. And it's not far off. I mean, someone like me or someone who's a little bit more, who's burning a little bit more, yeah, you might see a little bit more of a discrepancy. But there's a certain amount of calories. You sit down all day, you are burning a certain amount of calories without activity. That's called your REE, resting energy expenditure. Then you have your non-resting energy expenditure, which is, guess what? talking and running and lifting and running around like a maniac. And then when you combine those two roughly through this formula, you come out with your total daily energy expenditure. How many calories are you burning roughly? And I'm not saying these formulas are spot on to the cent.
What would you say your average is daily?
Mine?
Yeah.
I'm in the three. I'm probably 3,300, 3,200 calories to just break even on my maintenance. So if I'm below that, I'm on a deficit. If I'm above that, I'm in an influx. And then there's other variables that I think, well, if you're above it, are you bulking? Well, yeah, you could be. Are you training? How much fat are you consuming? How much carbs are you protein? And that's why I think it's important sometimes to get an understanding of the macros. Because if someone's always living in a deficit, this is the one thing that drives me crazy. I will argue a nutritionist till they're blue in the face. If you are in a caloric deficit, you will lose weight. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not going to happen. How do you explain to people who are consuming 800 calories a day and they're not losing weight and they're continuing to put on body fat? It makes no sense to me. And we have seen, and I've met with guys like Rob Yang, Adam Ross, nutritionist, dietitian, Sarah DeLuca, nutritionist and dietitian, and they will actually try and get people up to their TDEE. And when they start increasing calories in the beginning, we have seen weight loss and body composition change. Now, am I saying you're always going to lose weight by hitting your total daily energy expenditure? No, but I'm saying getting that body to start firing, getting your energy level up, increasing energy levels, and allowing your body to hit these maintenance calories that are clean calories, I think is magic. And I think it's something where most of us aren't doing. So people are just waking up and frivolously eating whatever they want. My energy right now, I'm a lunatic. Since honestly, I'm out of my mind. The last 3 weeks since I've been dieting for the cover of Muscle and Fitness, which most people, are you in a deficit? Like I have my low days, I have my high days, but they're way higher than most people. And it might even be a little bit better than where I was when I wasn't measuring. I'm burning body fat. I'm getting leaner. I've lost weight. I was at 216 when I started. I'm at like 205, 206 right now. And I'm getting stronger. So this is going against everything everyone says is possible. But this is obvious. I see that with someone who's natural, who actually has their training in check and their eating in check. These are things that I think are very doable. But I think it's a long conversation, and we're not going to have time for that today. But I think we could talk about this next time that we're on.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a bit of a segue into something a little different, but I think that's what people are always, especially now that we're heading into summer and people are going to be a little more body conscious. So